Her Excellency Bergdís Ellertsdóttir attended the University of Freiburg in Germany, where she studied German and followed by political science, English, and history. She went on to study political science and English at the University of Iceland, and then completed her studies at the University of Essex, where she received an MA in European Studies, a program that we also have here in the Kennedy Center. She has had a long career in international and diplomatic service, and in 1991 she joined Iceland's Ministry for Foreign Affairs, where she was the first secretary in the Trade Department, and she has had assignments covering NATO, the European Free Trade Association, and the European Union. She has also served as Iceland's ambassador to Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Switzerland, and San Marino. In August 2018, Her Excellency was appointed Iceland's permanent representative to the United Nations and has been serving in her current position as Iceland's ambassador to the U.S. since 2019. She is also the first woman to be appointed to serve in that position. Please welcome Her Excellency Bergdís Ellertsdóttir.
Oh, wow. I didn't expect so many. Thank you so much for turning up on this cold morning. Well, maybe not for us who are from Iceland or from Utah, but I'm very impressed, and thank you for the warm welcome. Yes, I was. Thank you for the prayer in Icelandic. It was. I mean, one thing, I've only been here for 1.5 days, and I'm constantly having tears in my eyes. So thank you for this. It was amazing, and the Icelandic was perfect for those of you who do not speak Icelandic. Maybe I'll just do this in Icelandic, and then. But it's a pleasure and an honor to be here today, and actually it has been one of my main goals since I came to the United States and to Washington as ambassador, to visit Utah, and because I wanted to see the sites that almost 2 centuries ago became home to the first Icelandic settlers in North America. And we were discussing this a little bit earlier, but I think that in Iceland there's almost a romantic notion of the people who came from Iceland to Utah in the 1850s, and taking the long journey by ship to Denmark, and from there to the UK, before crossing the Atlantic to New Orleans. And from there we have learned that they actually walked the 1,600 miles to Spanish Fork, Utah. And I'm going to visit Spanish Fork later today, and I'm looking very much forward to that. I've met some amazing people from there, senators and the lieutenant, what do you call it? What's it? Right, Lieutenant Governor, thank you, and both from Spanish Fork. So, and regularly Icelanders make this journey to come and see where these Icelanders lived in the U.S. And there has also been a fascination in Iceland about the fate of these people who made this long trip and uprooted themselves from their homes to make a better life for them in the U.S. And we are very much, and I've learned that the same thing goes for Utah. We are very much focused on our kind of genealogical link to people and to the people who made this journey. And we have an unusual ability to trace kind of our roots, and we usually do it to the first settlers of Iceland in the 10th century. And we have like this this is a difficult word, genealogical database. And so when you meet someone, you go online and you check if you are related to that person, and then you go to them and say, okay, you know, we share, you know, roots, or my great-grandfather was brother to your great-grandfather or whatever. So it's very important. And it's not for dating purposes, even if that is what the foreign press says. So as I said, the first Icelanders came to Utah in the 1850s, and at that time there were only like 50,000 people living in Iceland. And after that, and today, maybe some of you know, we are less than 400,000. We are like 370,000 people, which is not a lot by US standards. But our population, as I said, has been growing fast. And that meant, of course, as in many European countries, growing pains in society, and good farmland was becoming difficult to find. And when hard times struck, these poorest of the poor chose to emigrate. Later on, in the 1880s, people left for the emigrates mostly focused on Canada, particularly Manitoba, but the earliest emigration was to Utah, and so it's kind of outlier to the whole thing. The first such emigration was on account of agents of the Mormon Church visiting Iceland from Denmark and enticed the people to travel to the big country to our west. These, I just want, it looks like they're going to, this is like a traditional costumes in Iceland. This headwear here, which, and the women in the middle have very traditional Icelandic clothes. And this is taken in Spanish Fork. But we were talking about the Icelandic author Halldór Laxness earlier, who memorized the story of these Mormons in a novel called Paradise Reclaimed. And it tells a story of Steinar at Steinahlíðar, who was a farmer who emigrated to Utah and took the name Stone P. Stanford, and he believes he had found paradise here. And the novel is important in our side of the ocean because it reminds us of this episode in our history, and it's written by our literary giant, the only Icelandic author to receive the Nobel Prize for Literature. It is often said that modernity arrived in Iceland via the British and the American troops, which were stationed in Iceland during World War II. And if you see a map of Iceland, it is strategically placed between US and Europe. So during World War II, it was really important for allies to have base in Iceland. And but this is an exaggeration because it touches upon an important truth that the story of emigration from Iceland to Utah and to North America generally reminds us of the fact how poor Iceland was until very recently, and what a backwater Iceland must have seemed to anyone who had traveled abroad and seen the great cities of the world. And I'm not sure how it struck you, 37 years ago, when you were in Iceland. But we have developed very fast and have become a thriving economy with very kind of strong economic. Our economy is strong, and our people generally live a good life these days. When I was doing my research before coming here, and I've been discussing this also with people I've met since I came across an announcement on the school's website. I have no clue what is happening up here, I must say. Ragnhildur, are you? This is from Spanish Fork. So just to give you a flavor of it. But I came across this announcement on the website. Said, I think it was yesterday, and it said students were being invited to come to the study abroad fair. And I was taken aback by the importance this educational institution puts on seeing that its students study abroad and see the world. I mean, the United States is large enough and important enough, certainly, but it's very important to go abroad and travel and see the world. And that is such a big part, I feel, of this university. And this morning I visited the Center for the Missionaries and met some young people who were on their way to Germany, and one person going to Iceland. So I'm not sure if you are helping with the training of this person, but it was very impressive to meet these young people and the skills, the level of how well they spoke the language after just a few days in some instances and a few weeks in others. And it was just very impressive and something I will take with me. And I think here lies maybe, and I'm not talking now about missionaries, but the focus on language and the necessity to go abroad and see the world with Iceland and this university. Because we are a small country, a nation of, as I said, less than 400,000, and far away from other countries in the North Atlantic. And it's of incredible importance that our best and brightest go abroad, travel abroad, and gain knowledge and understanding and expand their horizons, no matter how, rewarding and enriching life in Iceland may be. But when you are small and peripheral, you do need to set forth and seek wisdom. And hopefully, and that is our experience, most people do return, but those who settle elsewhere, they are hopefully good ambassadors of our tiny nation. On that note, it's often said that Iceland punches above its weight, and often we get more press than we perhaps should, considering our size and geographical location. And we have, and many of you may have seen, we have been routinely in the news recently because of repeated volcanic eruptions in southwest Reykjanes Peninsula. We have seen 5 eruptions in only 4 years, all in a fairly small area, in what is a key part of the country where the international airport at Keflavik is stationed, which is, but until recently we've been very fortunate. The 3 eruptions we have been calling tourist eruptions. They were fairly an easy walk from main roads, and they were not dangerous for inhabitants or any infrastructure. So both Icelanders and foreigners were able to track up to the site and take a look. And there is very little that is more impressive than seeing a volcanic eruption close up, with the hot lava flowing and streaming. And I must say, it really humbles you. And I think now we can see, just to explain this, that we sit on 2 tectonic plates between Europe and North America. And this, of course, can be seen as a blessing, but to some extent a curse. But it means that we have abundance of geothermal power, hot water streaming from the earth, and tremendous resources in terms of heating our buildings, and has allowed us to develop technology and expertise that it has in recent times become much sought after, even here in the United States. And I had some great meetings in the Capitol building yesterday, and there I could feel that the focus on energy is very strong, and I see that as something that I will take with me and explore for further cooperation between Utah and Iceland. But the Reykjanes Peninsula had been dormant for about 800 years, so we didn't think anything would happen until 2021. And now the experts, the geologists, are telling us that we are looking into a long period of activity in this area. And as I said, these have mostly been harmless, but the last one made it necessary to evacuate a town of about 3,000 people. And you can see here the lava has reached the houses at the end of the town. And so these 3,000 people are now waiting to see what will happen, and possibly they will never be able to return to their homes. And this is something that the people of this town and the government are tackling right now. But all of this reminds us that Iceland is an island of extremes, and it's often called the land of fire and ice, and rightly so, although I could go into now global warming issues and talk about retreating glaciers and the fact that maybe in 200 years it will only be a country of fire and no ice, but we could maybe discuss that later on, because what I wanted to do is just make a short introduction to Iceland, and then I would very much like to answer your questions. But I mentioned the assistance we received from the U.S. And that there was a U.S. Soldiers came to Iceland during World War II. But we have been blessed through our alliance and friendship with the United States. And in 1973, so I'm staying on volcanoes now, there was a huge eruption in the island of the Vestmannaeyjar. And that is actually the island from where the people who came to Spanish Fork lived before they left. So half the inhabitants of that island left for Utah. But I just wanted to say that during this time of crisis on that island, the U.S. helped in many ways. For example, using American helicopters were flown by American servicemen to try to cool the lava with water, and as you say, they even were helping to try to take the ashes to what do you call it? Shovel the ashes from the houses. A lot of houses went under lava and were covered with ashes. So our bilateral relationship with the U.S. Is an important fact in our foreign policy, and we have a very strong bond, we feel, and our relationship is very strong these days and is much broader than it used to be. There used to be a permanent U.S. naval base in Iceland from 1951 to 2006, but the strong kind of defense and security relationship has remained important for us. And I wanted to mention that this summer we celebrate 80 years of independence. In 1944, we became an independent country, a republic. We were under the Danish crown, and we were a Danish colony actually for many hundred years. But in 1918, we became a sovereign nation, so we were independent, but under the Danish crown. So in 1944, we became independent, and the U.S. was the first country to recognize that independence. And we are grateful for that. So along our bilateral defense agreement with the U.S. and with our membership of NATO, these are the cornerstones of our defense and security strategy. Otherwise, the most important alliance we have is with the other Nordic countries. Those of you who are doing Nordic politics and Nordic languages know how strong this relationship is. We also have, of course, a very strong relationship with Europe, with the European Union. And we are, of course, a member of the UN. So the UN, our Nordic collaboration, and our bilateral relationship with the US are sort of the cornerstones of our foreign policy. I also heard that many people in this room, maybe you could raise your hands, are doing global women's studies. Are there any here? Exactly. So, I mean, I just wanted to mention that we built our modern economy on the cornerstones were, of course, fisheries and more recently tourism. But what has been very important for us, and we think has made us the country we are, economically strong, forward-looking, is gender equality. So gender equality has always been like a red thread throughout all our politics, also foreign policy, development cooperation, and we pride ourselves of being a very gender equal society. So I just wanted to mention, since I knew there were some people here from that group, and I would really like to discuss that further. We have a youngish, maybe for some students not young, but for me, a young prime minister who is a woman and a mother of 3 boys. She has put gender equality at the top of the agenda of the government. So I just want to just finish on the note that I had such a wonderful visit so far, meeting, as I said, in a beautiful capital, in Salt Lake City, and now here. And I made so many friends, some of whom are here today. And all I know is that I've already decided I need to come back. And I want to use the opportunities that I've found here to enhance the cooperation between Iceland and Utah, and not just because we have some relatives in Spanish Fork. So I just want to say just how honored and lucky I feel that I've been here, and how warmly welcomed I've been, not just to this university, but to Utah. And I want to finish on that, and just please ask me everything that comes to mind, be it on politics, it can also be personal questions. I know that there are some courses in women leadership, and of course it's important for women. For a long time, the problem was that we didn't have any role models. In Iceland, the only role model we had for many years was our president, Bergdís Ellertsdóttir, who was the first democratically elected president in the woman president in the world, and so she was always the role model for everyone. So, but now we have more role models, but we need even more of them. So I feel always privileged to talk to young women about being it's strange to call yourself a leader, but anyway, I'm an ambassador. So I really like talking about that as well. If you have any questions on that, but please just throw them at me. Thank you. Please, were you first? Yeah, women first.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for being here, and I actually look up to you a lot, so thank you for taking your time to come. I am curious if, I know there was a women's march in Iceland well, I suppose it was last summer, and I was curious if you were a part of that, or if you could speak to your experiences with that march and how that was.
Thank you. Thank you for this great question. So the Women March it was in October, exactly. Yeah, I was busy in DC, but we had some cake. We had some pink cake. But this goes back to, and this is actually the start, starting point of the women in Iceland, kind of their fight for more equality. It started with a women's march in 1975, 5. Because 74 was the anniversary of the Republic. 5. 75. So thousands, well, so women decided to, it was called a women's strike. So women that kind of just left their work, left their homes, and they just wanted to show that without women, the men would not be able to handle it, be it the home or the office or where the schools or whatever. So they marched out into the street and they sang, and the men were left with taking responsibility for the whole society, for the homes. The story is being told that hot dogs sold out because they didn't know how to cook. So, but it really showed the society once and for all, black and white, that without women, the society does not function. And this was used as a starting point of the fight for equal pay and equality throughout the society. And so this march last year was kind of remembering that march and women saying, after all this time, yes, we are more gender equal society than we were before, but there's still a lot of issues that we need to tackle. Please. I think, were you not? Ah, yeah, you're waiting for the microphone. It's okay.
I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the importance of the family in Icelandic culture, and maybe too personally.
No, that's fine. I mean, I have been telling people that, I mean, we are a small society, so family has always been very important. And when I was studying in Germany, and people were studying with me in south of Germany, their parents were in the north, their other, they wouldn't even go home for Christmas. And I was like, oh my God. I was crying in my pillow because I couldn't go home for Christmas and meet my family, So, so it's the cornerstone of society. You could say that the concept family has evolved and developed. I mean, family can be different things. But the structure, the family is an important aspect, and it's sort of our welfare system. Because if you, like me, I was working a lot, and I have 4 kids. So sometimes I knew that when my husband was away, and I knew I wouldn't be able to go and pick the kids up or whatever, and then I can phone my mom, I can phone my, mother-in-law or my sister-in-law, I always have this network of people who help me, and I help them, of course. So yes, the family is important. I see some hands back there.
So I just had a question. So sometimes in the U.S., gender equality may not be, the best. So I was wondering, what do you think we can do as, personally, what can we do to improve gender equality within ourselves and in society?
Thank you. I mean, I always, when I was often and have often been asked to come and speak about gender equality. How did we acquire it as a society? I mean, what were the steps taken? And I always say that the United States is so big. Iceland is small. I mean, I think you need to go on the local level, sort of, to make it happen. And there will be no gender equality without men. So the focus now has been for us is to involve men and boys in arriving at gender equality, because it makes sense for everyone. And it certainly makes economic sense. If nothing else, sometimes you have to, money makes sense for many people. So if you say you will feel it in your, pocket or whatever, then people are more willing to strive for it. But I think every one of us has a role to play. I mean, I have boys. I have to be a role model for them, to show them, that women can have careers and family, and they see their father helping and, taking care of them. And so I think it can be a very personal thing. It can be a local authority thing. It can be a federal thing. But I think, if we all work together, we can reach that goal.
I just wanted to ask, what female role models inspired you to be where you are today?
It's a very good question. Because, as I was saying, there weren't that many role models. What inspired me is one, my father was kind of ahead of his time in a way, so he was a teacher, so he had more free time than my mother, who was working at late hours. So my father was very present in my life, you know, and I only had sisters, and I didn't really know, you know, to be honest with you, I didn't really know that there was a huge difference between being a girl or a boy, you know, in terms of what you could do. And my parents always told me that, you know, we could all be whatever we wanted. But I think my role models were sort of in books. You know, I read a lot when I was a kid, you know, Nancy Drew, you know. So, yeah, but not like a particular person. And I was already grown up when Bergdís Ellertsdóttir was elected president. But of course, but you can still have role models when you are grown up in a way. I mean, you look up to some women and you think, oh my God, I mean, how does he do it? And you would like to be like her, even if you're in your something age. Please.
I would like to hear more about the reading culture that Iceland has, especially in the modern time when it's sometimes difficult to get younger people to read.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I mean, we have, so language and literature is our identity. We don't have we don't have old churches or, you know, like in Europe. So what we have is our pride that we, or those people who did in Iceland, wrote the sagas in the 12th and the 13th century. And we pride ourselves for being able to read it. I'm not so sure it's totally true, but, you know, we sort of can read it if they write it in a, you know, in a modern day writing. But so literature has been kind of the cornerstone of our culture and our cultural identity. And it's said that in Iceland, at least every 1 person in 10 is a writer or wants to become a writer. You're looking at one, you know. So we're all there, and just reading is a big part of the culture. I remember I saw a program on people who had immigrated to Canada, to Manitoba, and they were speaking to people who were like, you know, people who were running a museum on the immigration, and they said what was different with Icelandic people who came from Iceland. I mean, they had nothing, almost only the clothes that they were wearing, but they all brought books. So they carried with them books from Iceland, and that was what they wanted to take with them to their new home. But I don't want to, you know, to be honest, we still struggle with young people and reading. And there is a difference between boys and girls here. So it's more difficult to get boys to read than girls. And this is something that is being discussed in society, and people are trying to find ways to get young people, and especially boys, to read more. So there are all sorts of programs and projects to do that. And I have 2 boys and 2 girls, and the girls have always read a lot, and the boys not. But I'm lucky because my daughters are always scolding their brothers and pushing books at them. But generally speaking, this is a problem in Iceland as well. Even if we pride ourselves of the fact that we do read a lot, and every Christmas there is something called the book flood in Iceland, because that is the timing of the publishing of most of the books that come out each year, and so a book is what you get for Christmas. And so on Christmas Day, everyone all over the country are sitting reading the latest novels and eating chocolate. So please, are you? I think you were first back there with a blue cap. Sorry.
Yeah, it's always been kind of a point of pride in my family that some of our ancestors were those early Icelandic immigrants. So I was wondering how you think an American could honor that heritage in a respectful way.
It's a very good question. I mean, we have, as I said, I think we have like busloads of people coming from Iceland to Spanish Fork, to once in a while to see and meet people who are descendants of those settlers. I think it's a difficult question because I mean, I would not want anyone to be forced to learn Icelandic. I don't think that is the way to do it. But I think people in Iceland really appreciate when people just remember and know. And when they come to Iceland, they say, I am a descendant of so-and-so who came from the Westman Islands to, just that you have this knowledge of your roots in you, and then you can express them. I think that's something that we would value very much, because we are so few. We need you all. Please.
I'm also one of those Icelandic descendants, Árni Árnason from Vestmannaeyjar. In his home that he lived in before is buried under that lava from the 1973 volcano. I'm a genealogist, a librarian here at the BYU Library, and also a member of the Icelandic Association of Utah. And my question is could there potentially be, as one of those points of collaboration, an opportunity of possibly broadening the policy on access to that wonderful database so that non-citizens and non-residents of Iceland who are descendants of Icelanders could access it?
It's a very good question. I will bring that back home with me, because I don't have access. I always phone my sister and like, can you look up this up? Can you look that up? Because you have to, as you know, you have to have like a code that you get into your phone, and then you can access it. And because my phone number is a U.S. phone number, I always have to phone my sister. But I think this will be looked into. I will take this home with me. Please.
Thank you. I'm kind of shifting the topic a little bit here, but 2024 is a really big year for at least the United States. There's, elections at all levels of government, and with like global uncertainty, especially with international organizations. What would you say are some of Iceland's biggest concerns with all of those?
Yeah, our biggest concern is global warming. And when the international organizations do not function, we have Russia out of the Arctic Council, and we had in the last administration in the U.S. leaving the Paris Accords. So this is, of course, of concern to us. The brutal war in Ukraine, the Middle East now, possibly Taiwan. I mean, these are really, this has an implication for all of us, and definitely an implication for us. And it means that the focus is not on the issues that we all need to work together on. It's on something that could be prevented with different, probably not with diplomacy, but this is something that is worrying us very much. And with Russia now, this is a threat to North Europe, to the North Atlantic. to all what is being, I mean, it's a threat to the Arctic. So yeah, it's very worrying for us. And as I say, the biggest problem that we need to solve, in our view, is global warming, which is being felt not only in Iceland but all over the world. And you can see the big ice mass in Greenland is just melting away. I mean, it's always, each time you read a report, it's faster and more than was expected. So this will change our lives, and we need to tackle that. But in the meantime, we need to tackle all these horrific wars around the world. Please. I don't know, maybe just start in the back since you are there. There.
Hi, yes, I would love to know more about your experience as the first female ambassador of Iceland and challenges that you have faced in that role and how you are and will overcome those challenges.
Thank you. Sometimes when I'm in that particular mood, I say it has been, it's helped me to be the first woman, because in DC there are like 190 ambassadors or so, and we are like a group of less than 50 women, and we just bond immediately when we meet. So I have like 50 sisters in DC, which I can WhatsApp, are you going to this? What do you wear? Things like that. So if I was a man, I wouldn't have any friends in DC when I came, So that, that's maybe kind of the more jolly answer. But I actually feel that we have reached a stage where it has actually not been so difficult for me, because luckily women are numerous in diplomacy, numerous wherever you look. So we are getting there. I mean, so I actually would not say that I was challenged in my role as ambassador in the DC, but I have had challenges, reaching that point where you always have this network of men, like in my ministry, Ragnhildur knows this, they're, I don't know if they do it in a sauna or on the football, soccer course, whatever, but they turn to each other, they make the big decisions, and so you have to try to squeeze in there. You have to be taken seriously. You have to be, and not by becoming one of the boys, but also making creating your own network, having, women around you who, and then we all, and I would say that nowadays it's not so challenging to be a woman in diplomacy any longer. And in Iceland, I think there are more women reaching the top positions than there are men. So now the men are complaining, oh yeah, it's another woman. My husband is like reading it, oh, another woman, yeah, it's only women, yeah. So yeah, I think we've reached a good point here.
Maybe we could take just one more question.
Please.
I just want to know, like, what was the process of becoming the ambassador of Iceland to the United States? Like, what were the steps that you took to get to that point? And then, like, as the ambassador, how have you used that role? And in the United Nations, like, what have you done, like, as far as, like, the war in Ukraine and in the tension in the Middle East, and, like, what you were talking about with the Russia leaving the Arctic thing that you were saying, like, what have you done to, like, with that, and, like, what were the steps that you took to get to where you're at now?
Well, first of all, the steps I took, I didn't know that I would end up here. It was not like I was working hard for 20 years to become the ambassador of Iceland to the United States, because there are so many factors. Even if someone at the top would think, she would be the perfect person, it might be that at that time I would be doing something else, or so it's coincidence and hard work, and maybe it also helped me to be a woman. I mean, because I was talking to my Nordic colleagues after I arrived, and then we were 4 women from the Nordic countries of 5 who were women, and we were all the first women to be ambassadors, but our countries pride themselves of being so gender equal, and we were like joking us because GC and, you know, the United States is so important, you know, women can't do it. So it's, I would say there are so many different aspects to it, but I came into the Foreign Service as a young woman, and I just worked really hard, and I did not go just one path. I did security issues, I did trade issues. I mean, I never said no to a job. I never, you know, I was kind of being as a tough cookie as I can possibly be. But yeah, but it's a coincidence sometimes. It could have been a great colleague of mine who's also a woman who could also have been in this role, but I was lucky, you know, sort of all the stars were in the right place, so I came here. But with all the difficult questions you asked afterwards, I mean, this is collaboration, this is diplomacy. I do not do anything alone. I do everything with my colleagues, with like-minded nations. I mean, the war in Ukraine has, for example, brought all the NATO allies closer together. We are so much more on the same page, talking together, finding ways to deal with issues. So this is just collaboration and having allies and a network and you know, so, and we're certainly, I mean, these are all issues that would be very difficult to solve.
Thank you all for coming. Would you please join me thanking Her Excellency for coming?
Thank you.